Wow.
And they put up decorations too.
Mhm.
No way.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say. I'll have to look up how to trick or treat in Italian. I'm not sure how to say that.
How do they say trick or treat? We'll wait just a couple. It's just not 10, so we'll wait just a couple more seconds. Good morning, Ainsley. Thank you for all your prep.
Yeah, first, good morning, everyone.
Have you heard from others who might not be coming this morning?
I know Jamel is not coming. Anne sent in some recommendations, so I hope that she'll be here to talk about those. But I haven't heard from anybody else.
Okay, we'll just give it another second and we'll just get into it.
I got trick or treat here. Dolcette o scherzetto. Dolcette is little sweets. Scherzetto is a little joke. Trick or treat. Dolce o scherzetto. I'm all set.
That will come in handy.
Yeah, but I got to have a bag of candy or something. Otherwise, I'll get a trick. I'll get a scherzetto.
Others, Anne. Okay. Why don't we get started then?
Okay.
Good morning, everybody, again. Thank you for coming on this. Hope you didn't have to drive far in the rain. It's a miserable morning. Dark, so but as Steve said, we need the rain, so that's a good thing. So we were thanking Ainsley for all the prep work and the agenda that you see there. So hopefully you had a chance to review the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes that Ainsley shared with us? And we have an AI assistant taking notes today. Okay. Any comments or any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve? Please.
Motion to approve. Go ahead.
Thank you. And do I hear a second?
I will second that.
Great. Thank you, Anne. All right. So that we're all set with the minutes. Thank you very much. And then obviously the bulk of the agenda today is looking at the proposed, our recommendations that's headed for the report. That's, I think it's November. Yeah, November. So you can see there are 7 major points that have been highlighted both in the email and in the attached report. So I was thinking we would just look at each recommendation, see if there's any other comments or questions or edits you want to make, or if you want to do embellishments. That might be the easiest way unless you've got a better idea. So let's look at recommendation 1. And both you can see it on your screen and on your paper if you printed it. And of course, that's for the recommendation that goes to the commission is pass comprehensive requirements for licensing authorities to restrict licensing on the basis of criminal history. So as a recommendation, is there any edits to that or any further discussion on this potential recommendation? Anne, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm looking at 1 and 3, and they look like they're in fact one recommendation. Like they could be very easily made into one recommendation because you're passing the comprehensive requirements and then requiring the report to monitor the implementation. And the reason I'm not also including 2 is because with 2, I don't know if that data exists. So I didn't want to interject something that might not, you know what I mean? There might be an issue with the data not existing, but I think that 1 and 2 are, very, very easy to fuse.
Thank you. Steve, I think your hand's up.
Yeah. Just a comment. I like these, and I think they'll probably go through some edits, but be aware that recommendation number 1 and number 2 are going to be worked on by I'm not sure it's Delegate Simpson or Delegate Embry into a piece of legislation. And it's so whatever we write here is great, and they're going to probably come up based on what they see the commission work doing. They're going to come up with some legislation. So there might be some back and forth with those delegates and us on the wording of it and suggestions. So our work is being taken very seriously by the delegates. The 3 delegates met with Ainsley and I. They requested a meeting to go over these things. And there'll be one more, and Ann knows about it. We'll talk about that when we get down to peer specialist. But so be aware that your impact is being felt already in terms of 3 pieces of legislation. But I think they're going to put 1 and 2 into one piece. I don't know. But whatever they give, we'll give back to everybody to see, to remark. That doesn't mean they're going to change it, because they're going to do it separately from the commission. But they're relying on our work for inspiration on this. Okay.
Thank you. And you can see Ainsley's doing some edits right on the recommendation 1. Any other comments on 1 and or 3? And then to Steve's point, the commission or legislators will be drafting language to fit. And knowing that, to Ann's point about the existence of data, I don't know if John has an idea if DOL would have that kind of data or not.
So I have one quick comment, and then I can certainly make a comment on the data piece. First and foremost, the past comprehensive requirements for licensing authorities to actually report when a license is denied based on criminal history. What I want to say is that that sounds great in practice. However, what we've learned in the workforce is that how can I put it? If an organization has either a license or someone to hire, and either the license is denied or a hire is denied, often the reasons that can be given do include some things that are subjective, and it's rare that it will be simply because of the criminal history. The criminal history is just the deciding factor, and then the decision will be based on something else. So whether it's insufficient, whatever, examples given for experience or what have you. Everything in the licensing and hiring industries it's not black and white. If you check all the check boxes, it's an automatic approval. So I just want to say that if I were going to get creative on what the legislation should include, and of course I can't recommend legislation and things like that, but I will say that it would be helpful if the licensing boards could provide a preliminary approval or denial prior to knowing whether or not there has been a criminal background. That way we'll know for a fact what that denial was based on, if the criminal history is then added after the fact, if that makes sense. And I don't know how. Just for instance, I can tell you guys, like Baltimore City had some bandit box legislation that seriously increased the number of interviews that some of our most challenged citizens could get. So they were able to get the interview, and then obviously after the background check was done, we saw a lot of folks not make it through, but it helped them get to that point, and it helped us understand better where the barrier was, so that we felt confident that the barrier really was the criminal background history. Whereas when it's on the front end, it's in a mystery box. We don't know what the denial is based on. We can only assume it's because of the criminal history, because the decisions are subjective. Diana, on your data question, the Division of Occupational and Professional Licensing does live here within the Maryland Department of Labor, and I feel like this was a question that came up maybe a month or so ago, very similar to what you just asked about the data that we have, that we collect on these, approvals and denials and things like that. I hate to ask for it, but if you could send me an email, I can loop in the Commissioner John Dove of that particular division, and he can actually either join us on this call, or have a representative join us on this call, or simply answer those questions via email.
And I'd like to authorize her on behalf of the commission, with the whatever authority I have, that you can write that letter, email to John, and have the force of the commission behind you representing the commission. So it's not just you asking as a work group, the commission is asking for that kind of information, so John can go forward.
Appreciate it.
Ainsley, I'll follow up with you after and Steve later about that. Okay. Thank you. And Ainsley, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you brought that up, especially the preliminary determinations, John. So I think that the point of this first recommendation is we're going to spend the next month actually like listing out what those comprehensive requirements are, including, you know, if we want to add preliminary determinations, things like some other states have done is like having licensing authorities specifically state what crimes they are like disallowing licensing for. So that's great. I think that we can definitely work that into the recommendation. Recommendation 2 about the data about how many licenses have been denied due to criminal history. That's based on a 2018. 2018, I think they also passed a law that was a 5-year retrospective on licensing, and the Department of Labor was not able to get any information. So maybe with recommendation 2 is what we could do is like a not super familiar with Robert's rules, but like a preliminary, like everybody can approve this, you know, pending having conversations to see if that data is even actually possible to get. So we can move forward with the recommendation, but only, you know, once we have that information of like, is it even possible to get that information? So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm good with exactly what's here on the screen. Just wanted to provide my 2 cents about some of the barriers and caveats that exist going along these lines. So I appreciate it.
On a practical basis, it becomes, I mean, I love your concept, John, about, you know, putting aside any criminal justice history before somebody gets interviewed, and then make a preliminary decision, and then look in practice how to make that happen without people cheating, and then going back and changing things. I mean, who knows? But you know, and then I like the part about specific. This Ainsley's bringing up. You know, it could be somebody committed a certain kind of crime, but it doesn't affect that kind of job. And you know, why should they not get the job if their criminal history doesn't have anything to do with that kind of work? You know, that's important for, you know, for some extra guidelines for people being who are going to be honest about it, interviewing people and selecting them. They can say, well, he or she may have done this, but that's not relative, so we're going to give the job. You know, I would hope that would help the situation. You know.
Okay. Any other comments on points 1 through 3? Okay, thank you for that. Let's look at 4, and this is using the MLDSC data. So, so that we can align occupational programs with labor market outcomes and labor market needs. So that's like an expansion of what we have access to now. I know Ainsley's in that system quite a bit, and probably others. So any other comments or feedback on item number 4? That's pretty straightforward. Okay. And of course, 5 is continue the transitional programming. We know that there have been several new staff people that started, I think, July 1st. So that was progress. So we were happy about that. I don't know if there's any more planned or not. I know that when we were doing some of the site visits, there were some staff that were missing as well. That was just the note taker. Anne, I see your hand is up.
I think Steve was up first, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can't tell that. So thank you. Steve,
Yeah,
go ahead.
quick comment on any of these recommendations. This one points out some things are being done by the department, by the labor department. So if we come up with a recommendation, and when we're doing our report, I hope in the final report we say, recognize certain things are being done already. We're asking for additional things. So it doesn't look like we're starting, you know, there's something little and trying to, and we actually have some stuff in many cases. So we should make sure that in the report we highlight that what we're asking for and what exists already. So it doesn't look like it's a negative thing all the time, but we're applauding stuff that's happening and encouraging it and stuff like that. Does that make sense? I don't know how practice how much we need to say on each one of these, but it'd be good to highlight what it's actually going on. So it doesn't look like it's a big criticism of everything, but rather we're supplementing work really being done and applauding it and encouraging it. Does that make sense, John, Tamara? Somehow, okay. So when we write the report, take a look at that, especially you guys, and give us some feedback, okay?
Anne?
Yeah, I was going to ask for some more specific language here, because build up transitional programming isn't, and I mean, it's not an action item in the way of that. To me, could mean something completely different than if you ask John or if you ask Danielle. I think the two recommendations below it kind of fit within that overall umbrella of building up transitional program. And I say that because the CPRS program, which I'm a graduate, has good record of job placement in the community. And I made a recommendation at a meeting in Baltimore City this week that they put a BCCC program to start putting people in community placements through work release, kind of with my recommendation about work release. But I'd really like to dig into like specifically like what do you see as the needs in transitional programming, and what specific action item would we like to see taken by the legislature or the departments?
Well, generally, transition programs do a lot of career exploration, labor market data review, so people know where the jobs are, maybe including financial literacy, any number of life skills that are essential for reentry. So, I mean, some of that language could easily be added. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, is there a specific class that you, because when I read continue to build up transitional programming, I'm thinking of the reentry navigators and the education specialists. I'm thinking of actual reentry infrastructure. So you're talking about things like financial literacy classes, which didn't even enter my mind when I saw transitional programming. So that's what I mean by the language being so general, that we're talking about two completely different things right now. Based on that sentence. So that was my concern. So if what that's referencing is specific classes, what I want to see is what classes are lacking, or what classes you think could be added with good impact. Like specifically, what don't we have?
John, I think your hand was up.
Yeah, Anne actually closed out with exactly what my comment was going to be. If it would be helpful, we can certainly provide what our portfolio of transitional services are, so that folks can ask questions. And if you have concerns, I feel like this is a place to voice our concerns about the program, places that we see for improvement.
And I'm not sure how to say that, but we know that there's variability across the state for a number of reasons. So that, some places are really fabulous and right on point, and others, for a variety of reasons, not so much. So maybe we can have something that, you don't want cookie cutter every place, but so that there's a standard, let's put it that way. Okay.
Yeah, and that's actually good for both our transitional and occupational programming. So basic education services, GED services are standard, but the occupational programs vary. The transitional programs vary based on location. As far as some of it, at least, some of the transitional programming is consistent across the board. But I think it would be helpful if you guys had a portfolio of all services.
Yeah.
This is a good place. This is a good place to put in where what I was trying to say. This is a good place to put in a paragraph to explain what's going on. And as you say, there's some variability depending on the institution and their mission as an institution and resources, et cetera. And you can write forever on this stuff, but if you put a nice paragraph saying these are things that happen generally, and these are, we're looking at, we can build in other, some comments about what's happening now, so that, this has more context, and that people will understand it in a similar way, to be helpful. Because we know stuff is going on, but we're not highlighting it at all when we make a comment like this. Some people take it, who are not on this commission, will take it as nothing's going on. So we're going to try to build up a program, but that's not the case. We're trying to build up existing programming.
Ann put in the chat the question: would conducting the review and ensuring the offerings are in alignment with the population needs be the recommendation, like number 4, but for transitional programming?
That is exactly what I was gonna ask, because I know that we're looking at database and we're relying heavily on data and what that looks like to make sure that we're catering to the market. But I also was going to ask just that, is there any idea or maybe interest in surveying the incarcerated population or post release population to see what they're interested in, and then kind of do a compare and contrast with the data to see how we could align folks' interests with the need of the market, and then provide a service based on that feedback.
To your point, Ramika, I think that's a really good idea. I know that the task force on creating a division of reentry services, they have a very long name, so I apologize if that's not it. They recently did a survey of the incarcerated individuals, and were able to come out with some. They came out with some data on education programming, what programming needs incarcerated individuals have, and so I'm in contact with the chair to see if they might want to do a presentation for us, or share that information with us, or if we feel like it's not comprehensive enough, if we can do our own survey. So I'm happy. I think we can put it in here as a recommendation to do that survey. But I also want everyone to know that like we're there has been a survey that's done, and hopefully we're going to get some of that information soon.
Well, why can't you reference previous work from that group in this as well? Conduct a review of transitional programming and previous surveys, et cetera, whatever. Get something in here to references that particular organization to show that we are in fact looking around at what's going on with other groups that are working to improve programming. And so that gets included in our knowledge base on this particular issue. But try to do that, try to do that in a brief way is not always easy, but I think we want to show what laborers do. We want to show what other groups are on the outside of working in the same direction as we are doing, and we recognize it and want to work with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I think can come, like we can write up in our, like when we're writing up what that review of transitional programming looks like, we can say we're in contact with them or we're designing our own survey.
Daisy, how big is it? Can you at least share it with our work group so we can see what it is?
They don't have anything public, I think. Like they don't, they did have a meeting about it. So I'll follow up with everybody and see where they're at with it.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll follow up.
That's great. And I think you're next.
There, when you're looking at reentry, there is a significant spike at around 3 months post-incarceration, and a significant drop between 10 and 12 months post-incarceration, where you see a peak of recidivism. And that peak of recidivism shows reentry failure. And it's very significant. I mean, if you look, and it's consistent year to year. I mean, it may shift a couple months forward and backwards, but it's consistently in that 3 and stops at 12 months. So I'm thinking that if you're looking to survey the needs of people and what's missing, one of the things that you might want to look at would be what is causing those failures, asking the people that actually have those revocation hearings, what would have helped you before release? Like, what do you feel like that was? And even to build that into the revocation hearing process. Another thing to do would be to look at, if you can't build it in there because it's an inappropriate place for it, to go to DPP and do a 3 or 6 or 12-month inquiry of their population and have them survey their population what reentry needs are not being met. Because I think the pre-release population, you're going to get data of what people think they're going to need, which is often inconsistent in my experience with what they actually need. Like that's my organization's purpose, is to make that to make that bridge. So I think you're surveying on the wrong side there. I think we would really have to do one of those post-release ideas for that.
Well, and also I don't know how to totally document, but the instability of housing options, that's been such a huge, they think they're all set and then not. So, yeah.
Ainsley, can you refresh us on these recommendations for this group and others? we're gonna have, we have a format where we have some explanations under each one. So that's where we're gonna put some of this stuff. And I don't know if you have that format handy, you could show us real
Yeah,
quick.
I'll pull it up. It might take me a while to dig for the file, but I'll find it.
Okay. All right.
She's very high tech this morning and every morning. All right, let's move on to recommendation 6 while she's looking for that. Or when you find it, Angie, just jump right in when you're ready. And this one goes back to Anne's point of create a pilot program to use work release to place pre-apprenticeship graduates into the community apprenticeships when they are within 18 months of release, ensuring that they are released, employment ready with job connections. Any other comments or edits to this?
I just wanted to drop this in there real quick about the recommendations we're talking about now. They will be much more fleshed out. So these are just the 1 to 2 sentence overviews.
Okay. So there's plenty of room to put in, like background, for example, 1 or 2 paragraphs. Plenty of room to put in what's going on, and there you can put in what labor is doing now, what some groups on the outside are recommending, etc. And then we refine it, you know, with extra stuff for best practices. I like this idea of having a success metric wherever possible. So this is what in the final report is going to be included. So we're looking at the recommendation, but this is all going to be behind it. And it's up to us to fill this in with whatever we think is important.
Okay. Any other feedback about report content? All right, let's go back again to 6. Any other edits or feedback on number 6 about the pre-apprenticeship programs and the linkage there? Okay, hearing none, that stands as it is.
I have a question. How many people are we talking about here that are in pre-apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship graduates? I mean, do we have numbers on how many people we are involved with this? John, you were going to say something, John Griffin?
Yeah, it took me a minute to find my hand. Number 6, create a pilot program to use work release to place pre-apprenticeship graduates into community apprenticeships. DUC used to do that. And then DUC stopped doing that because they lost funding and they started closing down pre-release centers for whatever reason, funding, staffing issues, whatever, COVID. And now we are asking DUC to establish a pilot program to start this process again when they already know how to do it. I'm a little confused by that.
And go ahead.
The infrastructure no longer exists that you're referring to. So you had, when infrastructure has been disused and the facilities have been shut down, you have to rebuild that infrastructure somehow.
Yeah, I get that. But in today's budget environment, is it reasonable to expect that DPSCS will be able to rebuild that infrastructure?
I think so, because the people already exist. You already have reentry navigators. Labor already has the 3 coordinators that they've just hired on. You already have institutions like BCCC operating. They're already placing people in work release jobs like McDonald's. So all we're asking them to do is utilize the Department of Labor's existing resources to place these people who've graduated these programs instead into appropriate apprenticeship placements using Labor's existing network. So I mean, yeah, I think that's a 0 cost option. That's reallocation of resources, not new resources.
Well, public safety might say differently, but I like the idea that you both come up with. It would be in the discussion for this recommendation. Keep the recommendation, and John, you know, and Ann both agree that the structure was all disassembled and discontinued for whatever reasons, and say that in the discussion, and say we're asking them to redo it, to take existing resources and to reallocate. And then public safety can come in and give some reasons if they want it as we make our report. You know, it's up to them, but we should still go ahead. I think it's an important recommendation. even if it's a little bit of pie in the sky, given current stuff. We should be talking about what we ought to be, and knowing that sometimes we just can't do it at this point. What ought to be is we should have correctional officers all over the place. But we know the reality, but we have to work to still make our recommendations, and so that there's some goals. If we start getting staffing that we know that they can look at and go for.
Jessica, I see you have your hand. Perhaps you're on mute. I lost you.
I noticed that no one from public safety is on, but we have met to discuss this. This is something that both agencies are interested in doing. However, there are some logistical concerns. For example, part of work release requires that you are not transient. So for a lot of our occupations, think masonry, HVAC, plumbing, you have to go to a physical location to do that. So, you might go to John Smith's house today and Jane Doe's house tomorrow, which is not allowed with work release. You have to go to one location every day. So there were some concerns, certainly that not concerns, I would say some limitations to what this looks like. DOC does do this to some extent. I'm thinking about in Hagerstown, we have occupational graduates that work in like the recycling center. We have a partnership with them. So this is happening in pockets, but we certainly have to look at the very long list of rules as we try to match up jobs to the jobs that we train our students for. So I just wanted to bring that to light.
Thank you.
That's all stuff that can go into discussion on a piece like this. That you have an example like you've given, where you can in the discussion show that although we want to do this, there are some things that have to be overcome or considered, and so the recommendation takes on more reality base.
Ramika?
Yeah, the question that I have, and this is came to mind, sparked by some comments that Jessica just made around potential barriers, right? Around accessing work release through employers, whether that is being one specific location assignment, or from what I know from my own personal experience is particularly at MCIW, is the mile radius. So if there's a mile radius that is outside of what the Department of Corrections has allotted for folks to travel to and from employers, it kind of restricts the movement and access to employers that may be interested in hiring those that are behind the walls and then maintaining that employment post release. So I just wondered, like, is there any talk around minimizing those barriers or coming up with alternatives so that the employment opportunities are more accessible and not so rigorous or flexible, so that folks can kind of have more and more opportunities that are in reach opposed to what they currently are being offered. And then the second question I have is there any incentives in place for employers to hire and encourage them to hire system impacted folks, right? Because one thing that I've learned about business is that the work that we currently do, we lead with our hearts and nonprofit work, but the business sphere is totally different. It's about the bottom line. So how can we take the interest of two groups and mesh them together so that it works for both parties, right? And does that look like creating incentives for a network of employers that have agreed to hire on bring on a percentage of system impacted folks, whether they are incarcerated or post incarceration? And is there also additional incentives for those that are able to maintain, for folks that are working with these employers once they're released? Is there additional incentives for them to keep folks on post incarceration? So just like those things like are in my head, and I just wanted to like get them out before I forget them.
There are some employer incentives, but they're not enough, basically. So if you're looking at there's a number of, I'm blanking for a second, but there are some incentives. But what we've heard for many years is that they'll either hire our people or they won't, because the incentives are not terrific. So
Yeah,
they're,
so how
they're
can
not
we
the deal
work on
breaker.
that? Yeah,
Yeah.
how can we work on making those incentives more attractive? Like, is there a conversation to be had with employers to see what their interests are? Or is there some type of like policy in place, or is there like a conversation that would be had with someone that is very influential in the space to say, I sign on to this? So, for example, 2 years back, there was a call to action for second chance employment, right? And that was done nationally. And I noticed that the employers and their interest around hiring folks was closely related or based on the messaging that they were hearing from the president at the time around the need to solve a problem, not just from a societal standpoint, but also from an employer interest, right? And how that helps boost an economy and makes, for um, a space for everyone's needs to be met. So I'm just thinking, what could we do on this level to use the resources and the folks that we do have to kind of like shift the ways that people see this? Or is there more information that we can gain from employers that right now hold the power to see what their interests are? How can we uh, service them so that they're servicing folks that are servicing the folks that are in their communities? So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll have an opportunity when this commission report is complete, can use it as a vehicle for that public outreach to employers. I know that many times we'd work with the governor's workforce investment board and other state agencies to try to promote the employment of formerly incarcerated people. Tamara, I wanted to thank you for, I was having the senior moment, but thank you for reminding everybody of the federal bonding and tax credits for employers. Those are the examples I was thinking about. I know, Steve, you've got your hand back up.
Yeah, just really quickly, there are, I don't know who they are not right now, but I know there's in the CEC there are business representatives who have been working closely for years, and they may have a lot of suggestions along these lines. I mean, the guy from the printing industry, what's his name? He's always on the CEC board for ages, and so John, I mean, are there people on the CEC board who might be able to help us with some of these things from their own experience, business people?
We only have 2 business representatives, if my memory serves me correctly. But Diana Bailey had a really good idea by saying, speaking with the Governor's Workforce Investment Board. That's a board made up of like 30 big employers in the state.
Right.
So absolutely a great opportunity as well.
Points well taken. Ask people who are involved already what incentives they would be more helpful.
Yeah. What works?
Mm-hmm. No, we were on their agenda several times. But again, as to Ramika's point, there was the interest and investment is up and down, has been for a while. So hopefully we can get it back on everybody's radar again. And it may be something that the current governor or your secretaries can, when we have this tool, can really get engaged around, hopefully. So any other comments on item number 6? Tamara?
Just really quickly, I put something in the chat. DPSCS and Labor via the CEC created a promo video, if you will, by some of the employers that are active on the CEC to help business owners see the skills that our students are learning in the various trades, and to encourage business owners from a business owner perspective to consider becoming a second chance employer. And it's phenomenal. I don't know if it's gone live yet, John, you may know, but maybe they could share that with this group so that you all can see it. But it was very nicely done. It highlights, the students working in the shops, the equipment that they're using. It's a really great video.
So it was promoted, Labor produced it? Who produced it?
DPSCS produced it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, we'd love to see it. That'd be a great reference to share in the report as well. A link to it.
Yeah, we should put that in the rubrics for this item when we write it up.
Great. Thank you. All right, let's look at number 7, and this is where the certified peer recovery specialist will become one of the occupational program areas. And somehow we're looking for funding for that, and it'll be sustained by additional grant funding or other areas.
A reminder that this is one that's being picked up by one of the delegates, and they want to see if they can find a way to expand grant funding and expand the program. And I made a comment when that discussion with the 3 delegates on this particular item. The peer recovery specialists, when they were talking to us in our visits, talked about sometimes they assist in the education department as well as doing other things. And so I was hoping that part could be expanded a little bit. There could be some possible training on how to help tutor, and the teachers could employ them. Because we had a peer tutoring program years ago. It was extremely successful. We had 400 incarcerated individuals who were assisting in the school program and back on the housing units. They were trained, and they would work on the stuff that was going on in the classroom, and sometimes they would actually work in the classroom. And if there are peer recovery specialists who would like to help educationally, we should encourage that, because we certainly can use all the help we can helping people with their classroom work. So where that is going with this, Ainsley, who's the I don't have I have them all the people who are sponsoring these bills. Which delegate is going to work on this one? Do you remember, Embry or Simpson?
I believe Delegate Pasteur was the person who recommended this, and Delegate Simpson is the one that wants to put this
I think
forward.
they both brought up, how they were impressed with it. Yeah. So okay, it was given over to Pasteur. So actually, Pasteur's got an event tonight in Pikesville, and she's called around and encouraged people to go. So I'm going to go, and I won't have time to talk business, but very much it's just more of an honoring her for 50 years of public service. And but I am going to be talking to her about some of these things. And I mentioned this again. And Ann, anything you can send over to delegate. You and I've talked a little bit about this. Really encourage. I think this is an excellent thing that we're asking people who have been involved to stay involved, not just behind the bars, but when they get out. These folks can have much more impact than professional staffers can sometimes, because they know what's going on, and they can empathize with people much better. So I really want to encourage this program. To me, this strikes at the heart of some of the things we ought to be doing, and to recognize it as a regular job is terrific. And maybe we can get that out into the community, that these people are going out, and who knows what, how this could expand over time. And so anyway, that's all I'll say on this right now.
We have a couple comments I wanted to share. That there is a written self-paced tutor aid training manual that I think Labor is going to put out this year, and it's through the JSTP program. I don't know what that is. Tamara, was that your comment? I can't scroll this back. It's not letting me.
Yes, I'm sorry. I know I'm trying to be sensitive of time, but yes, it's under any institutional job. We help incarcerated individuals document those skills, either to share at a parole hearing or when they go home and they're released and working with an employer. But one of the things that we're working with, we created over the last couple of years, myself with a couple of teachers from various institutions and my JSTEP managers, we created a self-paced training manual to help train those serving as tutor and aides, whether they're working in a library, they're working in classrooms, where it's going to teach them formal skills. They will receive a certificate at the end. We'll do some face-to-face interactions with them. But to Mr. Stewart's point, exactly, it's an invaluable skill set to have. They are actually working in that job title under DPSCS. For example, if they graduate from their GED program, that teacher can pick them up as a tutor. That peer-to-peer instruction is absolutely amazing. And so we've created a program. We're just waiting to send the manual to print so that we can actually certify them, train and certify them in that area, because they're demonstrating dynamic leadership skills. So that will be rolled out very shortly.
Can you share that? I mean, even though it's a draft form, can you share that with me? Because we used to have we emphasize more of the literacy training with the peer tutors would come in and work with the lower level students. I just would like to see how you're doing this, and then I'll make some
Yeah, for
comments
sure.
on it, knowing that you're going to print with this. But I just love to see it.
Yeah, for sure. It hasn't gone to print yet.
As a reading specialist, this goes to the heart of everything I did for years.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And thank you for clarifying what that stood for, Joint Skills Training Partnership Program. So thank you very
That's
much for
correct.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. And let me go back to Anne's comment. She's recommending connecting with more. I don't know what that is. And Casey Delworth at Labor, and that's in relationship to the CPRS program at Cure Specialist. That's an opioid related and has traditionally been funded out of the opioid grant funds. It might be a good ask for the restitution money. Okay. And Tamara, you have your hands up again, please. Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry, just to clarify, Labor actually transitioned that from the Office of Special Grants to Correctional Ed. That is now also one of my programs, the CPRS program. I spoke with a small group about that a couple of weeks ago, and we do receive a grant from MORE, the Maryland Office of Opioid Response, a very small grant that helps with training and professional development. And actually, Anne came through the training program. We have hired a grant manager, Unique Alexander, who works in my office, and she has done a phenomenal job with it. But absolutely, we receive a small grant for MORE, and that program is growing and thriving, and folks are actually graduating and going into various jobs in the institution and upon release in various jobs in the community.
Anne?
Well, since you're here and since that's under you now, I want to ask a couple questions. One, with the opioid, the opioid restitution funds, which are being discussed both at the state level and at the Baltimore level, with BCCC being located in Baltimore, and 40% of people coming back to Baltimore. I've suggested in several places that we use or try to earmark some of those opioid restitution funds as opposed to the small grant that currently exists, but to try to leverage some of those opioid restitution funds for the peer recovery specialist program. I've also noted that the peer recovery specialist program would be a great one to pilot with community placements, because you would be working in one location. It's an office job. So those barriers that traditionally would have to be overcome don't exist with the peer program. And you have extra money. So if you need to hire a coordinator, if you can get some of that opioid response money, you might be able to hire a coordinator with opioid response money. Has any of that been explored or anything along those lines in terms of funding this already?
Not at the present time. So that's good to know that that funding stream exists. So we will definitely have to look at that. And I'd like to follow up with you.
Yeah, no problem at all. And that's why, because it was discussed at the MORE meeting when I was there at the MORE meeting presenting that opioid restitution fund. So that's why I was saying connect with that board.
Okay.
Try to link that money. And Casey is on that board. So yeah, let's talk offline.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so we've gone through the 7 recommendations, and Ainsley's been adding notes, and we've added additional resources to include. Are there any other comments or discussion points that you want to share? Anything, Ainsley? Steve, you have something else?
Well, yeah, I want to just emphasize what Ainsley put up before. Start filling in that rubric with stuff that fattens these recommendations up and makes them reality based as to what's going on, what we'd like to have happen, what might be problems, whatever, what success metrics there are, etc. Because we want to get this report out in November. But also remember that number 1, number 2, number 7 are going to go forward separately with the delegates, and they promise to share it back with all of us and get feedback. But what they come out with might be a little bit different than what we're putting in their report, because they're going to go forward with attempting to do some legislation. And we may be, if it goes to legislation, there may be hearings. And so be prepared. Maybe people will be called to go testify or to give written stuff. And I know going through labor, we'd have to go through some rubrics if we ask people from labor to come and talk about it. But So worked with John on that, but who knows where it's going to go. But we have three recommendations coming out of your heads and other people on the board that are now heading to legislation, which I think shows how powerful we can be as a group, as a commission, to making some positive additions and changes to what's going on. So,
Ramika?
This is more so a question for me. So if anyone knows the answer to it, I thank you. But the question is that we have the mayor's office of employment development or something like that. It's
Yes.
MOED.
Yes.
Is there a reentry specialist hired by that office to partner with the Department of Corrections to help work on extending employment opportunities? Because what I've found is that I've tried to reach out to them several times for a few folks that are now home seeking employment, and I'm trying to find a person that I could work with one-on-one with job placement and exchanging job opportunities so that I could share out with folks. But I haven't had any success with that. So my thought is I'm just one person. But my thought is that is there a is there a person that is assigned to such work? And then two, is there collaboration and partnerships between entities, institutions, to make sure to kind of like bridge that gap? Because they seem to have a sea of information, opportunities, and things like that. So how do we use that to um, kind of get those resources in the um, in the
Right.
places where folks need it the most?
In the past, we had grant funding that did in fact pay several MOED workforce specialists.
Okay.
But I don't know, John, do you know if there's anybody now that's working for MOED or through labor?
To do what? I'm sorry.
They were basically workforce specialists, specifically working with returning citizens.
Yeah, so that program grew. So at first it started with MOED, and we actually grew that program. It's now statewide. That's our Reentry Navigator initiative. So we have one in every
Is there a
local.
list of those specialists?
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe we
I
can
don't
share
know
the
if
list.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's available online, but that's something I could absolutely share with you.
Yeah. So that should help your question, Ramika. Thank you. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order today? Or Ainsley, do you have everything you need for us moving forward with the discussion today? Okay.
I just want to give us a little update about where we're going. We're going to be using this format in order to fill in those recommendations. So next week, we're going to present these recommendations to the commission for approval. If the commission approves it, we're going to be going through this for all of the recommendations, filling that out for the final report. So I just want to thank everybody for all of your recommendations, all of your thoughts today. It's been super helpful. And I also want to thank Tamara for being here as the Director of Occupational Programming. It's nice to have you in these meetings.
Yes,
So
thank you.
Ramika, I see your hand again.
No, I forgot to lower my hand. I apologize.
It's okay. John, I think you're next.
Yeah, that's all right. Just wanted to add a quick comment about our reentry navigators. I usually caution against giving anybody a list of staff members because it is a staff position that exists in every one of our comprehensive American job centers across the state. And just like staff in any, local front office, the staff change pretty regularly. So folks move on, they move up, some folks move out. The best way to get in contact with a reentry navigator is to simply reach out to the local American Job Center and ask for the reentry navigator, and whoever is actually fulfilling that role at that particular point in time. But we have one assigned to each comprehensive American Job Center, which there are 13 regionally distributed across the state.
Thank you for that clarification. Steve?
I just want to thank you, Diana, for heading up and working with this group, and hoping that you can continue with this as long as possible, because we're going to have a big report ready. And from what I've gathered, from what Ainsley's told me from the governor's office, commissions don't usually come out with stuff like this in the first year. So we've really worked hard, and we've gotten notice, as you can see, from our 3 delegates who are energized to go forward with stuff. And this is just the beginning of our work, as far as I'm concerned. And so to get that rubric filled out so that these things make sense, and so somebody doesn't come back later and say, well, you missed this or missed that. We're always going to miss something, or somebody's going to say, I should word it differently next time. But let's get it out there and when we finally go for approval, that we can be all proud of a report. So send stuff to Ainsley, and you can copy me as well. And I just applaud all the great stuff you guys are doing, and the tremendous amount of cooperation we have among folks from the government here, and other interested people who are just want to go forward with some good stuff for the state. Okay.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, Ainsley, but our next committee meeting is October the 23rd, if I'm correct. I think.
Let me check.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think I heard that Steve's going to be out of the country, and I will be out of the
Not
country as well.
that. I'm leaving the 28th.
Oh, okay.
I'll still have email communication, but I don't want to get on a Zoom 6-hour difference in the day. Besides, I'll be trying to have fun in Sorrento and Amalfi and places like that.
All right. Anything else for today? And to Steve's point, thank everybody for hanging in there with us, and all your information and all your caring for our students, our returning citizens. Anything else? All right. Have a great day.
Yes.
And the rest of your week. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.